Good morning. How is San Diego the most lively bunch? They drove the farthest outside of me to get here. I'm really excited to be here today, and I love that the beginning of this conversation talked about a conversation. And communicating IA, I mean, yeah, it's probably World IA Day, so we should say the word IA a lot, but in reality, a lot of us as practitioners are often put in the position to communicate the value of what we do on a very regular basis. Some people understand it, some people don't. Some people may think they understand, but they don't really understand. And this is common, and this is a common frustration that all of us face. And so my goal today is just to kick off the conversation about how do we work to communicate better the value of what we do in fragmented environments. Environments where understanding is there, or maybe the value of what we do is not understood, the resources aren't there. Recently at HP, we're getting ready to move forward a bunch of new projects. And we had this meeting to launch MVP. Anybody heard of MVP before? Yes, minimum viable problem. So we sit in the room, right? And there's 15, maybe 20 people in this room. And they're brilliant. I'm sitting there with some people, usually like today, I'm in a room with people much smarter than myself. And I'm listening, and we have one whiteboard. It's like halfway done here. And we're talking about ideas. We're looking at what seems to be a structured foundation for what we need to build and what we need to accomplish as a team, as a product team. And as the conversation starts and the terminology starts to come out and different parties from development, marketing, product management, design managers, whomever, all the different groups represented in the room, what started as a very singular, focused point of attack and moving forward to get this MVP done. Definitions, maybe some people were saying, oh yeah, we should do this and we should do that. And they were saying similar terms, but their definitions and understanding of those terms and how to do them might not have quite been the same. So a few hours in, a couple days in, we're in day 3 of all-day meetings talking about this, and yet we're still defining the thing that's already defined on the whiteboard to build. And what I started to see was something that had a crisp foundation slowly started to dissolve because there was a lack of common understanding. When we don't have a common understanding of the terms, the goals, the expected customer experience of what we're building, there's not going to be great opportunity for an expected common valuing of design, of our skill sets, of our disciplines as we try to work together as designers, architects, content strategists, whatever our role may be, or if we're the magical unicorn that does it all, we are going to have to face much larger hurdles as a result of that valuing not be there. Now, does that mean that this is the company's fault, or the organization's fault, or the team's fault? No. So many different people in a room with so many different backgrounds are going to have a very difficult time out of the gates, just without any work behind it, having a shared understanding. So there's already a small hurdle there. So what we need to do is start to understand that and go in with the idea and the mindset to be able to communicate not just what we do, but the value in what we do in a way that's understood. This is a struggle for all of us. I mean, I broke it into three things that I see on a consistent basis. Sometimes the folks we work with just simply don't understand our discipline or some of the aspects of what it is. Oh yeah, that's we're going to responsify that design, or we're going to, okay, yeah, this is IA, so we got to use sticky notes. And they try really hard to relate. Or we're lucky enough that they do understand what these roles in the organization or our clients understand what these roles are, but they don't clearly understand the value. So they know they need these things. And a lot of times we'll work with clients and organizations and in teams where, well, someone told us we had to have a UX designer, so we got one. He's oddly tattooed, but he'll work, right? So we grab this UX designer, we slap him in there, and he starts making stuff. And sometimes it's even worse. Maybe one of the two of these are understood, or maybe even both, but then, oh, you know what? That's great. We love your insights. We love your ideas and your approach, but we really don't have the resources to push that through right now. The lack of resources to execute is a killer. That'll crush your heart, especially if you've been evangelizing and working towards getting that understanding. But the reality is, there won't be a need for resources if people don't understand the value of what we're doing and how we're going to be able to communicate it in a way that they get it and they're like, oh, yes, you know what? We don't have the resources, but we'll get them because we understand the value of this to our product. I'd like to call myself out for being a design idealist. We're very fortunate. I would say that every person in this room is very spoiled. Look at where we are right now, in a room full of like really freaking smart people. And you think, I mean, it's just starting. The rest of this day, we're going to hear so many brilliant people talk about concepts, ideas, approaches. We have books, we have blogs, we have video, streaming, we have the Twitters where we can watch and listen to each other argue about what we call ourselves and other aspects of design. You know what happens is it can be easy to get into the mindset, I've done it a million times, where this is the way it should be. This is ideally, like, well, we're not really agreeing on what this MVP should be, but, well, no, ideally, we would have this already mapped out and done, and that's how we're going to handle this, and we start to get frustrated, maybe lose hope a little bit. So the biggest lesson I've learned in the last year and a half or so, working for a large organization, is there is what ideal, and it's really good to have a grasp of what that is. But then there's also what's real. Services need to launch. Products need to get built. And our rainbow-filled ideals sometimes need to set to the side to be able to accomplish that. And I can say that because I was the idealist for a very long time, and I still am. I just balance it a little bit with some reality, and I go back and forth. We have to be careful not to let idealism and what we always have known to see to be a certain way put additional hurdles in our path as we try to communicate what we do better. So this is a challenge. Who doesn't like to be challenged? It's good to challenge ourselves. How do we do this? How do we communicate? There's so many different people. In that meeting that I was in, there was 15 or 20 different people in that meeting. Maybe 3 of them could be considered people who did the same thing. So I have so many different experiences, backgrounds, approaches, and ideologies ahead of me to try to convince that this is the right approach. That, hold on, we need to back up and reevaluate why we're doing that. Have we thought about this? Why aren't we doing that? It's a large task at hand. I recently finished reading a book by Karen McGrain on content strategy, and it really helped me think about that. And she would talk in the book about communicating getting buy-in on a better content strategy. And some of the things I pulled from that were to have a plan, come prepared, be ready to help people visualize. We often get frustrated in organizations and teams and working with clients because they don't understand what we're trying to share with them. Well, that's probably good because they're not us. They don't do what we do, and that's why they've hired us in some form or another. And then using collaborative exercises, getting them to buy in, to do it themselves, can really break down some of those communication barriers. In that book, I love this quote. If anything from that book, there was a lot of great things, but this one quote stuck out to me that I wrote it and stuck it on my wall in my office. Tailor your approach to how you present your recommendations so it is aligned with how people make decisions. See, as a designer, I can think, oh, this is the best way to do this onboarding flow, or this process, or this whatever I'm trying to convey. Yeah, it should be like this because this is what I've read, this is what I've learned, this is what I know. And that's how it resonates with me. But when I'm talking to a marketing professional, is it going to resonate the same with them? I don't think that it will. At least in my experience, it hasn't always. And sometimes it does, and we're fortunate. But we have to start understanding how we can communicate in a way that resonates with them. Change the terminology. Don't nerd out. Sometimes you have to just make it simple and easy for people. But we feel like we're doing a disservice because we didn't use a bunch of big words. But it's better to just get them to understand and get that buy-in. Come prepared. I love doing this because no one really believes me. So I have to find a way to get them to. And it's often because, well, you're the designer. You're supposed to come and recommend to do design better. But a lot of times, if you come prepared, having done your research, having found validating factors outside of yourself, it becomes so much easier to say, I'm suggesting that we do X, Y, Z because I believe it's going to affect the product that we're building this way. And here's where, in this case study, doing so had a positive effect for this organization, or this product that's similar to ours. They did this and it worked for them, or this team used this approach and they benefited greatly from it. And then it's not just you. You come with concrete evidence that helps maybe give you a little bit of backup to prove the point. Visualization. I recently got to speak at Sketch Camp, which I thought was relatively amusing considering I can't draw to save my life. And through that, and listening to all the speakers there, I really started to understand the value of helping the stakeholders, the other people we work with, visualize what we're talking about. And oftentimes that can just be getting up on a whiteboard and just starting to go to town and map out a flow. Show them, look, here's where they are. Here's where we want them to go. This happens here. Draw smiley faces, stick figures. At least those are the things I can draw. And you put those in there and you get them thinking. If you have to, print out, this sounds weird, print out pages of the applications for the web and mobile that you're building and stick them on a wall. Whatever you need to do. It's World IA Day, sticky notes. Use whatever you have to help them visualize. When they can start to visualize what you're talking about, they can start to digest. They can start to understand the value from their end. And that's so much more valuable than just us going out and saying, this is why we need to do this. This is the value. Collaborative exercises. If I don't mention this, it's kind of silly because this is like my favorite thing ever. Things like design studio, sketching exercises, getting people to do workshops. In this meeting that I talked about in the beginning, we had 4 days to define this product and get marching orders. Well, it was already defined, but kind of get everybody on the same page and say, all right, this is your role, go, 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 and send everybody out to work their magic. On the third day, we still hadn't defined anything yet. The next day, everyone had to go out with marching orders of what to build. I started to worry slightly, and so I just did what every good disruptive designer does, and I just hijacked the meeting and said, excuse me, I have an idea. And they said, okay, sure. And I said, I'd just like to break this team into 2 groups and start doing some exercises to help us visualize. Because we started with half of a whiteboard. We're 2.5 whiteboards in, and yet we're all still very confused. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's because we're all really working hard to try to understand this, and that is a good thing. We just need to dial that in a little bit. And so what we did is I just ran an impromptu design studio. So here's what we're supposed to build on the board, break into 2 teams of 5 to 10, or between 5 to 10, whatever our numbers were for in that meeting at that moment, and said, start sketching out what you think this on the board means to you. You have 10 minutes. When you're done, we're going to review that. We're going to critique that with our teammates and see, as these groups did this independently. Then after that, we broke it again and said, okay, now that you've done it individually and you've all reviewed each other's individual insights and understanding of what this is, now as a team, put all those together, come up with what you think your idea is. Then we're going to come back with our 2 teams and we're going to share them. We finished the day with a clear understanding and marching orders. There was no need for a meeting the next day. Simply because people started being able to visualize and understand the value. Through that, we started to surface things and approaches and we're like, oh, we can't go that route. We have this constraint. Especially in large organizations, you're going to have constraints that will come out of nowhere. Because it's a large organization, there's multiple layers of management, initiatives and things that are happening. So just getting people down and spending, I think it took us 2 hours, 2.5 hours total. We visualized these ideas. We understood the value enough to make an approach, figure out if we needed additional resources, and start. Probably not the most conventional way to do things, but it worked. I would venture to say that it's not always easy, but it's going to be worth it. Because the first time we pull a stunt like that off, we're going to have a little bit of equity in our favor with them. And we can start to communicate on a more regular basis the value of what we do. If you walk away with anything today, take in context everything that you're hearing and slowly start mapping that to your organization. Don't just take anything I say or any other speaker says word for word and just go instantly think that you can add that layer on top of your client work, your teams, or your organization and expect the magic is going to happen. That would be very ideal, and I would wish it was that easy sometimes. But if we take this and we go back and look at it in the context of our organizations, our teams, and our clients, and how things work, we're going to have a much better time communicating the value of what we do. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of World IA Day.